If you want to learn how to go fast, you came to the right place. Welcome to the channel. This season, I'm going to be covering the Ferrari fixed with track guides and helpful tips so that you can go fast. We are going to cover important things every single week, such as where should I brake, where's the apex, where's the edge of the track so that I can use all of it, am I using the brake, the throttle, and the steering correctly? Also, there will be other things that will come up and we'll cover them as needed. First, we're going to watch the video of the lap. And second, we're going to analyze. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Left of the section.
So we're coming into T1 and we're looking for our brake reference marker. And that's going to be these two black marks here. That's where we're going to want to brake. As you can see, brake starts at those two black marks. And now we're trying to be at the very edge of the track. And that is going to be at this kink, slight kink on the wall here. So we want to line the car up at that kink and have the outermost part of the car at that kink. And as you can see, you try to get as close to it as possible and it works out. At this point, we're going to be looking for the apex. And we're looking for a specific part on the apex, which is the cone. We're looking for this cone up here. I don't know if you can quite see it. There we go. At the cone, that is the apex. And we want, because this is such a long corner, we actually want to get on throttle prior to the apex. This is why you see that the throttle starts to happen before the apex. And we want to run all the way out to the edge of the track. Probably can use a little bit more. If you just dip the rear tire though, you're in for trouble. And you might end up in this wall. Moving on to T2. We're looking for these three cones, as well as the white line, and want to brake slightly before that. So roughly here is where you want to brake, but these are the reference markers. As you can see, brake happens prior to the white line. And we want to trail the brake. A lot of trail brake in this corner, and we just want to miss this part of the apex here. It's a late apex. We just want to miss it so that we can get to the left as much as possible so we can straight line this next part. That's the important part. I want to carry as much speed through this next part as possible. And you want to cut this as much as possible. Cut too much, you get an off track. So there is a limitation here. You got to find it. And the most important part is setting up a good exit out of the next corner, because we have a long straight coming up, and hence we want to use all of the track. Why don't we want to be here? Well, it's because there's some grass over here and we're not going to be able to dip tires through here. If there was pavement here, we probably want to be on the right side of this curb. But because there's grass there, we really just want to be right on the very edge of that curb on the left side, so we can open T4 as much as possible. Long, very long corner. It takes a lot of patience. Just be on the lookout for the apex, which is going to be this kink right there. And ideally, we want to get on throttle prior to the apex. It's similar to T1. Long corners, ideally, you want to get on throttle before the apex. And lastly, edge of track. On the exit is going to be on this curb. Do not get too much on this dirt, because there is an off track here. Also, when you come off this bump, it's a fairly hard bump, fairly big curb, and the car can get this unstable. So be careful. So we've arrived at the best passing opportunity of the track, the hairpin. And so what that means is we want to be really confident on the brakes here. So it's extremely important to have a good brake marker. And the cones are going to be the best brake marker that you can have. And we're going to be braking right before those cones. So let's check it out. When that happens, as you can see there, and we're braking fairly hard here. And it's pretty bumpy. So you have to be cognizant of the bumps that are happening here as you're braking. You might have to adjust your threshold a little bit if you've gone too hard. It's a fairly late turn in, and we just want to graze this apex here. As you can see, I was a little wide, but you can still carry quite a bit of speed. Too much of this apex, and you're going to be hitting traction control, and you don't want to be hitting traction control. These curbs are very large, especially in the final third of the curbs. It's very large and it causes a lot of traction control, so you got to be careful with that. And as we come out of the corner, we really want to be running over this dirt here just enough to not get the off track, but just enough to be straight and not activate the traction control and have this rear end kick out. If we try to get the car through here like this, what's going to happen is this rear end is just going to go left. It's going to kick out. You're going to lose about a tenth, probably, just because of that on top speed. Because this is a fairly long straight that this corner leads onto. So we're on to Cunningham and Tower, and for these two corners, traction is very limited in this car. So it's really important to have very smooth inputs. It's also important to get on throttle early, maximize the traction. And so let's get to the braking zone here. We're looking for the 4-cone. We're going to be braking after the 4-cone. You can see some discoloration here. It's fairly light here and it's very dark here. We want to brake before it gets dark. If you're on the dark pavement, you've gone too far. So just make sure that you do not, and don't overdo it on this braking zone. It's really easy to do, and it's better to just brake early and get better exits. That's how you're going to get your time here. Brake early, get a good exit. As you can see, brake happens fairly early. Turn in after the 1 cone. And it's a very gradual turn in where we're trying to get on throttle as early as possible without getting this traction control, without allowing the rear to step out. And when we're trying to hit a fairly late apex. And on exit, our job is not to get all the way to the edge of the track out here where the curb ends, but instead to find how much we can push on the left side before we have to lift on this next full throttle zone. Because our goal is to get that full throttle zone, full throttle with 0 lifts, with 0 traction control activation. That is the goal. And roughly, this is where you want the car to be. Any more than this, and you're gonna sacrifice on this exit. And you're gonna lose more time than you gain by pushing the braking zone and trying to accelerate too fast. And as we move over here to tower, which is the most difficult corner in my opinion, very easy to get it wrong. And you can see the braking is happening very early. I'm anticipating it quite a bit because it's not a straight line braking zone. It's a diagonal. We have to estimate where we want the car to be. We know the turning point is around here, so that we're trying to get the car pointing in a straight line diagonally to that point so that we can brake in a straight line, turn in for the corner. That's the goal. And the reference point for brake is going to be the 3-cone. However, we're trying to brake before the 3-cone. And it's just going to depend how much speed you're carrying through that full throttle zone that I talked about. If you carry a lot of speed, you're going to have to brake earlier. If you don't carry enough speed, you're going to be closer to the 3-cone. So it just depends. So as we move here, we're turning in at that turning point as we kiss this curb. Very bumpy part of the track here. So you just got to be careful with the brake as we're turning, as we're releasing. And we want to get on throttle really, really early and hit this apex, avoiding the curb, at all costs, avoid the curb. And as you can see, the throttle happens extremely early, way before that curb is even at our front tire. And on exit, we want to make sure we use all of that track. And you can see right on the edge of that curb, you can get away with a little bit of dirt, but with this setup, it's pretty unstable and the rear end likes to kick out if you get a little bit of dirt. So I would advise against it. The curb also activates traction control, but it is faster than just being like carrying less speed and not activating traction control on this right side. So make sure you use all the curb on exit. Now the most difficult corner, I think I said that about tower. So there's two very difficult corners. Sunset's another. Every single corner is very difficult on this track. So yeah, just gotta embrace it and embrace that challenge and try to get as much lap time as you can. So let's get into Le Mans here. We're looking for the 3-cone or we're looking for the end of the curb. Pick which one works best for you. For me, I'm looking for the 3-cone, and I'm trying to brake in between the 3-cone and the end of the curb. So roughly there is where the brake happens. It's a fairly late turn in. We're down to second gear here. We're trying to graze as much of this curb as we can without going over the top. You do not want to be hanging over this curb. They're very high. And honestly, if you take this little part of the curb here, it's going to spit the car out to the left. So it's going to hurt this exit. And you're going to end up more to the left of this curb rather than to the middle of the track, which is where you want to be. So avoid getting on the last third of this curb. Maximize throttle as much as possible. And just find how much you need to sacrifice here in lift of the throttle in order to get back to the left. Let's see how much I have to do. Quite a bit. Down to about 25% throttle. And that's just to hook the car and get it back left here. And we're on the brakes as we're crossing the end of this curb. So there are a couple tricks here. You can hook the car up. And I did hook it up a little bit on the edge of this curb, and it helps rotate the car, but it is dangerous. If you're not confident with this, the car is going to land awkwardly and it's going to spin out to the left side. So if you're not comfortable, don't hook the car on this edge of the curb and just come around it, to a little bit to the right. You're not really going to lose that much time by sacrificing that. And lastly, vision is really important here. Vision is important everywhere, but especially so here. We really want to look at this apex early. Otherwise, you're going to miss it. You're going to go deep on the brakes here. So vision really needs to be here at this apex early. And then as we're about to get on throttle here, our vision needs to shift to something that we can't even see yet, which is going to be out here, which is the exit curb. And it's all about the vision here to get a nice, smooth exit. And if you find that your steering inputs or your throttle inputs are not smooth through here and you're struggling, it's because the vision is not quite right. And lastly, let's get over to Sunset. Our last corner, there are some early references that we want to look out for, which for me is going to be the 3-cone. This is a very different corner in prototypes. But in GT cars, we're looking for the 3-cone, and we're trying to start turning the car in at the 3-cone, and the brake happens at the 2-cone line here. You can see just a little bit of steering input to get the car to the right, to the middle of the track, and at the 2-cone, the brake happens 50% roughly, and then we're just trailing. We don't have to use all of the track on the left. It's not necessary with a GT3. We just want to bleed off and rotate the car on the brakes. And the apex is this kink over here. And we want to get on throttle prior to the apex. Really important for it to be prior. Down to second gear here. So as you can see, brake throttle is already being applied at the first kink. This is the first kink and this is the second kink. And at the apex, almost full throttle, but you can't really be full throttle because it's very bumpy. It's very bumpy. And depending how well you rotated the car, you might be able to get away with no lift here. But if you didn't rotate it properly, you might have to lift a little bit. It just depends. And that is a lap around Sebring. Good luck this week, and I wish you all some good racing. If you want to check out some GT and prototype racing, come say hi. I stream most nights and weekends. My channel is Boris Angel. Look forward to seeing you guys.